All right, great. Let me find your information. Okay, welcome back to another episode. I am super honored and thrilled to have colleague and friend Hilary Johnson here today. And let me just read a little bit about her and we will just jump right in. So Hilary really recognized the need firsthand for true community support and education. This led her to create Hatch Tribe, an organization devoted to cultivating and connecting women entrepreneurs across the world, where she helps them grow powerful, profitable, and sustainable businesses. So I'm honored again to introduce business growth coach and the founder and CEO of Hatch Tribe, Hilary Johnson. So welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you.
Thanks, Donna. I'm so happy to be here.
I remember about when I first heard about Hatch Tribe, I was thinking about this morning, and it was when, I was thinking it's way back in like 2017 when I decided I was going to have an event, and I hadn't really been doing a lot of networking in Charleston, and I went to some other person, went to another networking, and they're like, oh, you need to go to Hatch Tribe. Hatch Tribe is awesome. And I'm like, okay. And I remember them saying, yeah, you have to come down. It's like 8:45 in the morning. I'm thinking, okay.
Yes.
I remember coming down there and driving down there for the first time. But it was so different from anything that I had experienced in before, as far as networking. You had it going on in there, and it just seemed like everyone was so thrilled to be there. And it was, I don't know, it was just a different caliber in as far as other networking, meetings and things that I had gone to. I'm like, oh, this is the place to be. It was really
Well, I
impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, our MO from day one was like, there's kind of a negative connotation to the word networking. And what we found is when we asked women, especially, they did not like the term networking. And so we thought, okay, well, how do we do this differently? And how do we create an environment where people want to come and connect and do what is networking, but under kind of a different banner? And so, our MO always was just, let's create a space where business owners can come together and they can be as they are. It was just no expectation. And that, I really wanted to know everyone in the room and get to know them by name and know their businesses and, develop true friendship and true connections. And I think that's a little different than what a lot of us experience going to networking events, where it's like, you're just getting shoved business cards and you're kind of like, ugh.
It's more of a connection meeting where you really get to know people. And that's one thing I was like, wow, these people all know each other. That was like the first thing. I kind of felt a little like an outsider, but it didn't take long to kind of get in. But it felt like, oh my gosh, these people were like talking to each other and they knew each other. And I thought that was really something, instead of, like you said, just like here, like people passing out business cards on tables and all of that. So
yeah, definitely. I think I never wanted anybody to feel like out of place. And I think it's probably even from my own experience growing up, it's like when you feel like you're the odd one out. And I take special care inside of our community of trying to make everybody feel really welcome, especially when they're new, because to your point, it's like you walk into a room and if you don't know anybody, there's those moments where you're like, should I have come? Should I just leave?
Right. Sneak out the back door.
Yeah. So I always liked finding people who were there for the first time and, getting to know them and then introducing them to somebody that I thought that they could really find a good connection within the room.
Yeah, it really was. It's great. And I know you've evolved from just the Charleston area, right, to
Yeah, we have members in our community that are all over the world. So
and that was way before COVID. I mean, you've been building this, right?
Yeah, COVID's just sent it into like overdrive. And of course, live events, in-person events are just not happening right now. And it's sad in many ways not to be able to connect in person, but I feel really grateful that we have the tools and the system in place to be able to connect with our community virtually and keep going so much of the goodness that was already there.
Yeah, because as entrepreneurs, we're just sitting here, normally we're just sitting here, and now it's even worse. And we feel like, we're scared to leave our house. We can't go out. We can't do things. And then we're even more isolated in our businesses than we were before. So having that network, having those connections and that place where you can, I know you still have been running like the little speed meet and greets and doing, happy hours or whatever. Like there's still some place to kind of get in touch and talk with people and get support so that you're not, just like sitting over here in the corner, like just like, what do I do? And maybe I won't continue to do this. And it's hard enough to do it when you have support, but when you're in this kind of a situation, it's great that you've, already had things in place to move on and do it virtually.
Yeah. And I think too, when this started to kind of break loose, in late March and April, I immediately saw like, this is a real opportunity for us as an organization to serve and to serve in the way that we've always intended, but to do it maybe in a way that was even more meaningful than ever before, because it's like at the core, we are a community-centric organization. And the desire is that we, to your point, are truly supporting business owners at really any moment in time, and thrust us all into just a depth of uncertainty and all those other feelings of like, I'm alone all the time, or I'm alone in my house with my kids and my spouse. And, I'm not getting to do the work that I want, and just, or I don't even know what's happening in my business. Will I have to shut it? Will I be able to thrive? And I think for us, it just gave us an opportunity to say, hey, dude, we're with you. You're not alone. We're all going through some version of uncertainty. And I guess in the similarity of that experience, there's a real bonding too, to say like, we are with you 100% of the way. Like we're going through the same stuff.
Yeah, there is something nice to think that you're not alone and you're not isolated in doing it. You've got this. Yeah, I've got your back. I'm going through similar things. Yeah. And that's been a great theme all along for you, like really to lead people. So let's dig into, just tell us a little bit about why you started Hatch Tribe and what really motivates and like drives that for you, your big why behind it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, initially, just the short version of this was I spent 10 years working in the corporate world, and I was like climbing the corporate ladder and doing that thing. And I knew I wanted to leave. I wanted to start a business of my own. And so I made that decision about 10 years ago. And I started my very first business in Charleston, South Carolina. And I was producing festivals and events. And it was the dream, it was what I had wanted to do for so long, but it was also a nightmare. It was that for most of us, the first year is like, holy crap, what is going on? And the questioning and the constant cutting your teeth, and like, there's just uncertainty and doubt. And it makes you question kind of even your own self-worth and your own self-value, as you're going through this learning curve, because it is so steep. And so for me, Hatch Tribe was born out of that experience, of my own experience of coming through those first couple of years of business ownership and being like, man, there has to be a better way, because I didn't know a lot of other business owners. I especially didn't know women business owners. I wanted places to get answers to my questions. I wanted to have a place to connect. I wanted to know if I was like crazy or if other people were going through this stuff too. So it was really born from like that experience that I had. Now it's transformed, it started as like, let's build community around this. And then it's transformed into like, yes, we want community. And there's an education component, which is like, how can we help you shorten the learning curve? And not only in the first part of your business, but it's like, as you continue to grow, because so many of the women in our community, they're established businesses, they're making money, but they're still learning. They're still figuring out how to scale, how to grow, how to bring on more people to their team. So we want to provide the right resources to help people grow into it, no matter how far along they are. Now, that said, the why for me is very much about women's empowerment. I look at, there's a lot of things that influence the world at large. And some of it is top down, so right now, as like many of us are going to vote, we're electing officials that are going to have the ability from the top down to pass legislation that changes our world. But I believe that the groundswell is almost more important. It's what we're doing from the bottom up. And that bottom up change is huge. And for us as women, we play a huge role in that. And especially for women entrepreneurs. So if we look at the landscape of business ownership at large, Still, there are way fewer business owners that are women than there are men. If we look at the disparity in pay, it is still significant. Women entrepreneurs earn $40,000 average per year as an entrepreneur versus men at $55,000 average per year. So there's a gap of 15,000 just for entrepreneurs. So I look at that and I think, how do we help this? How do we really further women in business, women entrepreneurs, and help them to close that gap? But I think what that does is it really helps radiate to everyone. It's to fellow women, it's to our children, it's to the generations that come. Like, this is what's possible. You can do this. And so for me, it's like, it's about women's empowerment and it's about women's rights. And I believe that we can change that from the ground up. And to me, entrepreneurs are in such a unique position to be able to do that. So it gives me chill bumps talking about it, because it's like, this is my why. This is why I do what I do.
I feel you. And my kids have, now they're seniors. Can you freaking believe it?
I cannot.
They have watched me since they were in first grade. That's when I started my business. Yeah. They have watched the progression, of course, from not knowing what I'm doing and all the way up. And I'm hoping, one of them is actually going into, maybe into sports management and sports communication and business, cool. Kind of bonding her love for sports and business. And my other one's like, I don't know that I could work a regular job, after looking at what you're doing. And so I'm hoping, whether they start their own business now or whatever, but some of that will, rub off on, hey, there are other options. Like, you just don't have to go into, I didn't have that role model growing up as a woman who had her own business, or even a dad who had their own business, just went and you got your job and that was the end. But I'm glad things have changed, and hopefully more even now than ever. I think people starting their own businesses and seeing it seems so easy to get your own business at least started, though it's not easy to actually make money with it. That's another
in some cases.
Yeah, that's another story. But like you said, just the empowerment, that the possibilities of it. And I see women just coming online and, creating business quickly. So I hope that they do bridge the gap sometime soon. With that, so that it shouldn't really matter, women or a man, they should be out there doing it. But it just feels like women are still behind a little bit in every way, and we're trying quickly to overtake, and I think to just kind of catch up to what we should have had all along, right?
Well, I think it's progress, and I celebrate that. I think that we can definitely look at the gap and we can feel bad about the gap, but I also look at the other end and I'm like, dude, look at the progress we're making. I mean, if you just look at the last 100 years, look at how much has changed for women. But, it's continuing to show up and continuing to do that work and continuing. And in my belief, and where this is like a huge shift, is like, women supporting women was not a big thing 10 years ago. It was more like cat fight your way with another woman. And it's like, what are we competing about? Like, this is stupid. This in many ways is why guys got further than women, because it's like, they were not doing what we were doing. They were over there like, yeah, dude, what do you need? I'll make that referral. I'll make that connection. I'll help invest in this. They supported one another in a way that we were not. And I view it now that like, this is a new change. And for us to truly show up and to support other women, it's like, I can celebrate your success and it takes nothing away from me. Like, we together are rising up, and that's the win. So I do try to look at the positive and really celebrate it, because we are making major shifts and major changes. So it's like, yeah, let's keep going.
It does feel like at first, I know just in my own, I jumped in, like, this is the end of 2009, where there's just not a whole lot of anything really. I mean, there's the beginning of online business, but there were just a lot of men and a lot of that masculine energy. And I think it's just taken some time for women to figure out how to make it more feminine, and how, like you said, to kind of stop the competition and supporting each other in a way that feels authentic and the way we want to do it. I'm seeing so much more of that authentic women. Like, we don't have to market the way men do, or just in this way. Like, we can do it in a helpful way. And it's been a growing and a coming together. So I think, and hats off to you, because you're creating the container, right, to have that place for women to come and support each other and go, hey, this is really a lot better if I have someone to do this with, than rather than like, oh no, you're going to take my clients, or,
Right.
that whole, there's not enough and all of that. So,
Yeah.
it's really been, a shift, but I feel like we're on the rise when it comes to that.
Yeah,
So,
I do too.
cool. So what about you and your business? Did you get to a place when you were like, okay, it's time for me to start scaling and leveraging what I'm doing? And how did you do that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, specifically with Hatch Tribe, it's like we were doing live in-person events and we were doing them only in Charleston. And, here we were developing a platform largely through social media that we had a following of people that were well outside of Charleston that were like, man, I want what you're doing. Like, how do we get some of this? And it became a question of, is the right method for us to scale through live events? And do we do these in other cities? And we tested it because we wanted to see, was that a model? And was it a model that we wanted to do?
Right.
Short answer is we tested it and it was not. And then the other end was like, yes, we have other solutions that can actually help us do this work in a better way. And so the Hatch Tribe Collective is our membership site, and that launched 3 years ago. And that's an extremely scalable part of our business that we will continue to grow. And of course, we have other courses and programs that we offer outside of that. But, really, I would say it was probably about after year one that we were like, we need to find the right way to scale this. There has to be another solution, and there needs to be a way to really fulfill our mission in a better way. So that very much pushed us online, and I'm really happy that we made that move.
Okay. So it wasn't so much that you were just like working a lot. It was more like, how can I expand? How can I scale? How can I reach more people who are asking over here, hey, what about us? Right?
Yeah, 100%. Because it's, I mean, again, if I kind of back up to the mission, it's like, it only matters that I help one person, but I would really like to help a million people, and it's like, how can I touch more lives and really touch more people in a way that's meaningful? And so, yeah, I mean, I think that to your question, we would have killed ourselves if we'd gone the live event route, because it's just a different flow. And I know live events, that's what I did in my prior businesses before Hatch Tribe. And it was like, to me, they're easy, but it was not going to be easy for us to scale that and do it all across the US, and to pick the right cities and to put the right people in other cities to run the events when we wouldn't be there. And then to think about how to do that globally. It was like, damn, we're going to work really hard.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to nearly kill us to do that. And we just were like, no, that's just not the right solution.
Yeah. Well, it's good you had that foresight insight and start going out and making that mistake on the, before you got too deep in or whatever.
Yeah,
You
totally.
tested and said, okay, let's try it. And maybe this isn't the way we're going to do it. So,
yeah. And we tested it for a year. We picked two cities in the first year. And then about the second year, because we were still kind of rolling off, we added another city. And so we were testing 3 just to see what was going to really work for us. And it was just becoming clear, like, that's just not it. So.
Cool. Well, tell me about like your superpower. If you could say what it is that you can really help people do, or what you see yourself as the thing, or your brilliance.
Yeah, that's it's a great question.
Hard to answer sometimes. Like, what's my superpower?
Yeah, I mean, I would tell you that it's, in many ways, it's just getting stuff done. But my angle into this is understanding the mental, emotional, or limiting belief roadblock that's getting in the way of getting the stuff done. So it's like, when I work with clients, and especially when I'm working one-on-one, often what shows up is a question that's practical. It's like, well, how do I, and it's insert topic here, like, I want to do more videos. So like, talk to me about, how do I do that? Like, what's the system I need? And we're talking about like processes and systems and equipment and topics. And then guess what they don't do? They don't make the videos. And I'm like, cool, what happened? And it's always something that's mindset related. So it's like, every time, I have a real gift for getting into my clients' heads and being like, what's in there? And I will pull it out, and I'll be like, okay, let's keep digging until we find it. But once we land it, my clients are usually like, oh, yeah, you nailed that. I think that's where we have to start. And, I believe that half the battle of being a business owner is mindset. It's, yeah, you got to know what to do, but, there's just stuff that shows up inside of your head that you have to process and work your way through, so that you can take really good, meaningful action in your business and not just get trapped in a pattern.
Yeah, I think all too many times we get stuck in the tactics, like you said, the doing, and that's just such a small part. It feels like that's everything, but it's not. If you don't do it, if you don't implement, or you're holding yourself back, or you're feeling like, I don't know, whatever comes up, all the stuff that comes up when in our crazy minds and the limiting beliefs and this, and I don't know if I can charge that much. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can do a video. I don't know if I can create a course. I don't know if I can actually help someone, whatever. All of that stuff really will block everything. Like no amount of systems and processes will help you through that. And if you're really blocked, you're blocked. It's not going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think that the two things that I see commonly, especially with women, is like there's one of them is this, like it's a desire to have things be just right, which is the perfectionist tendency. I've got it. I mean, I'm class A perfectionist, and it's, I can see that flaring up, and I have to catch myself and be like, oh, wow, you've been working on that too long. Like you need to let it go. And so my mentor's advice is, 70%, that's perfect. 100%, that's failure. Yeah. And I like that advice, and it helped me reshape how I think about it. And I would say, the other side of that is judgment. I think that especially as women, we don't want to be judged. And in many cases that prevents us from putting things out into the world. And so when you take that, I don't want to be judged, and this perfectionist tendency, what we end up with is a whole lot of inaction, a whole lot of pulling back, holding back. And it's like, dude, your business is not going to win, and it's not going to grow if it's not out. It has to be out in front of your customer and your clients. It can't be held back on your computer or not done.
That web page isn't going anywhere. It doesn't matter what color that logo is or how long you've spent trying to make it look the best it's ever looked. But yeah, it's about getting it out. It's like that. I have to stick to the done is better than perfect. And I have tried to live by that. I'm not a super perfectionist, but in the early days, I found myself spinning, and especially when it's something that you really feel scared about, or I find myself, well, I need to work on the laundry. Like I find anything else I could do when I don't want to do something else. Suddenly this other project just is really important, and I start spending hours over here, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be getting this proposal out, or, doing that video or something. But we find a way to justify, well, I just have to work on this other thing real fast, and then like 4 hours later, because we're scared, or we just don't want to put it out there. And it is a hiding behind. I think my clients do it too. When I'm like, I am not sure about this title, they're right. Or I'm not sure about this logo or this. I'm like, you know what, we can change the title. Let's just start selling your course. Like, who cares? Let's just do it. But, they do get, many times people tell me they really want to have that. They're very concerned that they want to bring stellar content out. Mm-hmm. And especially if they are that type A, or they've come from like a higher level corporate job or something, they want it to be the same level. But
and I think it really it comes from a good place, right? Like it's a good place to be, of like, I want to serve a quality product or quality service to my clients. But yeah, I mean, the procrastination is usually avoiding what's uncomfortable. And I think that, we have to learn as business owners and as humans, frankly, just to embrace things that are uncomfortable, because that's where you're growing. If it's easy all the time, then you're not growing. It's like you've already figured it out. So there is a level of discomfort that I think as humans, we have to be able to embrace. And especially when we're growing or learning something new, it's just going to be there, and it's all good. You don't have to feel bad about it.
And this is where having someone there to walk beside you helps you. And when you have to kick their butt, you kick their butt. And when you have to hold their hand, you hold their hand, right? Like, I think that's the thing. Otherwise they're like, oh, what's wrong with me? I'm not doing it. And again, it goes back to having someone that you can kind of help through, this is totally normal. Everybody does this, or whatever. So oh, okay, cool. That means you don't feel so bad. So
absolutely.
Well, speaking about like being uncomfortable, tell me like an epic fail in your business, something that happened and the lesson you learned when that happened.
Yeah. I think that the one that I often talk about is in my very first business, we were producing really large festivals and events. And one of our events was Spring Jam Music Fest. And it was the first year, it was a 2-day music festival. And, about like 4,000 people each day. So that particular year, Ed Sheeran was set to perform on day 2, which was huge because this was like right at about the time he was like breaking loose. And in day 1, we started to get rain. And, as I mean, not a lot of people enjoy coming to an outdoor festival when it's raining.
Right.
Although we had good ticket sales in advance, a lot of the money that we make is when people come to the event. And of course, a lot of ticket sales would be day of. So we ended up losing. Nobody came, bought tickets the day of, and we didn't have all the beer sales and all the concession sales you would normally have. It stormed and poured that night, literally flooded the site. And so the next day we had to change the schedule. Ed Sheeran's team was like, I'm not sure we want to let him perform on this stage. Like, it kind of looks like a hazard. I mean, we literally were taking towels out of the hotel room across the street and sopping up water off the stage. I mean, I was like, if I survive this, it's going to be a freaking miracle. So, all this to say, it went off. Like we did it. Ed performed. People had so much fun. It was raining. They were in rain boots. I mean, people could not have had more fun in the rain than they had that day.
Yeah.
So we did what we always do. We wrap up the festival. We go run all the financials. We run all the stuff through. And we had lost $30,000 in one day. One day. And this was like about a year and a half into my first business. And I was like, oh, shoot. Like, I don't even know what to do now. And I will tell you, there was a moment where I thought, I'm just going to go back and get a corporate job. Like, I don't know if I can handle this. And, it took some time to figure out like how to reconcile what had happened and what we would do about it. Like, what if it happened again? And how are we going to mitigate this with the following festival, which was 2 months later? And, all these big questions. So I guess the moral of that story is, I think a few lessons learned. One is you need often a little time and space to process. So like if I had made a decision the day I realized I had lost $30,000, I would have made a bad decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I needed,
and a lot of bottles of wine.
Yeah, I'm sure I had that. But it's like, I needed the time to process it and to let the emotion fall out of it and to really back up and be like, okay, like this happens in this industry. Like, what am I going to do with it? I think number 2 is you do have to plan for risk. It is part of what we navigate through in a business, and it's part of becoming comfortable with it. And I can say now, I'm way more comfortable with risk than I was in the early stages of owning a business. Yeah. But it comes with time. And so here I would say, it just kind of depends on how long you've been running your business. And especially if it's even a new business and say you're in your second or third business, you're starting all over again. It's going to take time. And then I think, that business and where this eventually led was I chose to sell it. After we were profitable, everything was going well. We were in like the 3rd year of business, and I started to realize I was not in love with it anymore. And so a big lesson that came from that was like, you don't have to stay in a business that you don't love, and many people will, they'll stay trapped in it. But I'm like, dude, that's like going to work for somebody else. That's what happens when you work a corporate job. Like, you've now created your own box and your own life of hell, and you're keeping yourself stuck in it. So it's like, extrapolate the lesson inside any business. It's like, is there something that's not working for you that you are still gripping onto with like cold, dead hands, and you're refusing to change it, even though it is making you miserable? So for me, that was a huge lesson, because now I can apply it in my current business just to say, is this working for us? Do we want to keep doing this? Does something need to change? Like, how do we
this? I think it's a great, and I just want to pause and even like, let's like talk about this a little bit, because I think you're right. And sometimes people think they have to stay, they have to continue. Yeah. And why? You as the business owner, you have the opportunity to build it the way you want and do it the way you want. And we feel this happened to me, as you know, because I sold my other business too. I had 2 businesses going for a while. I'm like, oh, this will be fine. I'll just run both of them, But, the chapter had closed over there for me on the homeschool business. My kids were in school and I was like so into the business marketing and courses, and so eventually then sold it. But same thing, I was like, I'm just not loving this anymore. I mean, it's
Yeah.
going well. It was, it was easy. It had a very streamlined business, but it was like not where my passion was. And I think if I just had stayed over there for the sake of it, I don't know. I'm sure now I think maybe I should have kept my homeschool business because all the homeschooling that's going on. But no, um, because it's too hard for me to talk about, homeschooling first graders when I have seniors and stuff. So it was just
Yeah.
something I had to let go of. And it was hard to start all over, as I know you're probably thinking
Yeah.
the same thing. Like, oh my gosh, do I want to start all over? But you have to have that passion. I mean, that's a big part of why we do what we do. Like you gave me at the beginning of this, your reason why, what you're trying to do. And if we lose that, or it changes, because we do change and we do evolve, and there are different seasons to our lives. And just
Yeah.
like me, I was so passionate. I love the homeschooling, but then once my kids were in school for 3 or 4 years, it was kind of like,
Yeah.
started to decline. And I'm like, I really realized what I did love more was the marketing and the business of running the business. So,
Mhm.
one could be leading to something else too, right? I'm sure
Of
you
course.
learned so much about running a business and what you love, what you didn't love, what you want to do
Mhm.
better the next time. And it just, it's all stepping stones.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think that really is it. My friend Stephanie calls it the glass box, and she's like, as business owners, we often create our own glass box. We find ourselves in a circumstance where it's like, I mean, it could be anything. It could be what you're selling. It could be how you're selling it or marketing it. It could be the people you've now surrounded yourself with, like your team. It could be
Yeah.
the office space you're in. I mean, there's so many things, but I think we sometimes just think we don't have a choice. And what I argue is that as a business owner, you have nothing but choice, and that's the gift. So make another choice. If it's not working for you anymore, like you have that ability. So why would you not?
Yeah. It's hard, but you can do it.
Absolutely.
Do it. It's not always an easy choice, right?
No,
Well,
no.
when has running a business ever been easy?
There can be easy moments, but I wouldn't
Right.
say as a whole, it's an easy choice.
No, it's not, but one I would never trade, right?
Amen. Right there with you.
Well, speaking of moments, was there a moment or an actual, like just a situation or moment when you realized, oh my gosh, like I'm really embodying this whole work less, make more approach to my business? Something that happened or something that you were able to do where you just were like, oh, this is working for me, or this is the life I was thinking about when I started thinking about, having my own business, the freedom
Yeah.
and all of that.
I mean, I think for me, it typically comes at windows of time where I sit down to plan. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but it's like, I'm a very routine planner, and we teach that inside the collective. So it's like every quarter I'm sitting down to plan ahead, and every year I'm sitting down to plan ahead. So like right now I'm working on 2021.
You guys have it. You have an excellent, I still use your planner stuff.
I'm so glad.
The CEO day, I still have on my calendar. It's amazing.
I'm so glad. But it's now when I look at, the year ahead, I recognize how much easier it is, and part of that is because we're not just throwing stuff at the wall and trying to see what works. It's like we now have figured out one thing that really does work, and we can put more effort and energy behind it. And so I would say, for me, it's often in the reflection. It's not when I'm caught in it where I can see that. It's usually when I back up from it, I'm like, oh, we have created space in our business. We now have time to like really serve in a better way because we're not like just in the hamster wheel anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that the hamster wheel is an important part of the journey, to be clear. Like, I think it helps you learn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for me, I always notice it when I'm doing planning.
That's interesting. I would never think that, but yeah, it makes sense, because you're looking at, okay, this doesn't have to be as hard. Like you said, you can streamline, you can leverage things, and you've got something going that's working. So
Yeah.
it's great. Okay, great. Well, thank you. This has been amazing. Tell people how to connect with you and what the best place is to get a hold of you if they want more information about you and Hatch Tribe.
Yeah, of course. So everything for Hatch Tribe is we fortunately have the Hatch Tribe handle. So Hatch Tribe on Instagram, Hatch Tribe on Facebook, and of course our website is hatchtribe.com. And I would say if you don't feel like you're part of a community where you have that support that you really want, to be surrounded by other business owners and to connect, the collective is a great thing. So you can find that at hatchtribe.com/collective, and enrollment's open, so you can join us anytime. And if you want to connect with me, I'm on Instagram at Hilary PJ. And usually I'm posting photos of me hiking or outdoors because that's what I like to do when I am not working.
Yes, I know you do. What you were traveling too when we could travel. If I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The traveling, God willing, will come back. It just hasn't been much this year.
I'm ready. I am totally ready to go. So hopefully that'll be coming soon. If not, I'm just going to do some like within the United States trips. We're already like looking at, okay, there's plenty of places I haven't been yet in the United States. So let's go, right?
I actually the other night sat around and looked at like RVs, and I thought, should I just buy one and just do that?
We're thinking of doing the same thing. We want to, once the kids graduate, we're talking about, doing some little trips and getting one of those cute little vintage RVs. So
okay,
I really
let me know.
one. Whether I'm not a camper by any means, but it just looks so cute. Mm-hmm. My husband's like, I think we should rent one first. So
fair enough. I respect that.
I think he's right. All right, Hilary. Well, thank you so much. And you guys check out Hatch Tribe for a great place to find community and some great business mentoring by Hilary here. So thank you so much. And I will see you guys on the next episode.